we're gonna start with our DVWA today, and we're gonna try to complete most of the attacks one by one. So the DVWA, you can see over here, DVWA, just like your damn vulnerable web application, is a testing environment for web application testing part. And over here, the DVWA is basically focused on the OWASP top 10. So you can see over here OWASP top 10 vulnerability in web application. So you can say Open Web Application Security Project. It's an top 10 critical vulnerability, and we're gonna try most of the vulnerabilities over here. For example, you can see over here DVWA is also a part of this vulnerability. So first thing you can see is brute force attack. Brute force attack in the login forum. So this vulnerability is basically known as broken authentication. So you can see over here broken authentication and session management, which is your A2 critical vulnerability. And broken authentication and session management vulnerability are the attack where an attacker simply perform a brute force attack with the trial and error to get an authentication user or unauthorized user on the application part with the uses of word list which contains some username and password. So if you see over here broken authentication in a simple way, broken authentication occurs when the application mismanages session related information such as a user identity get compromised. The information can be in form of session cookies or password secret keys. So what is the aim of this vulnerability? The aim is here to get someone else's sessions or using sessions which can be ended by the users to steal session related informations. So we can try all the possibilities one by one to gain unauthorized access, and many further things can be happened. So for example, this is a normal username and password parameter. So I'm going to teach you how a broken authentication works. Simple. If we are logged into an application, first 3 attempts will be trials, means you can simply enter 3 times a username and password. After 4th time, it will block you for a specific period of time or a temporary time. So for this attack, what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to use a word list. You can see over here I have a dictionary which is a username dictionary. You can see these are some usernames, which is root, admin, test, guest, info, Adam, MySQL, user, administrator, Oracle, FTP, PI, Puppet. See, and I have a password word txt also, which contains some of the word also over here. So my major perspective would be we're gonna use this two different word lists to perform a proper broken authentication attack. So in this scenario, for example, see this one, we have a username and a password attack. So first of all, I'm gonna use my burp suite, and we're gonna use intruder. As I mentioned here in the burp suite, intruder is basically used to perform brute force attack on the web application part. Intruder. So first of all, we're gonna enter some phrases 1 and 2, and what we're gonna do here, we're gonna intercept the packet. Why? Because we need to capture the packet for our testing part. Intercepted on and login. So over here you can see it's on the form, and over here we have the username and password field over here. So the most important thing what you're going to do over here is to try to perform a brute force attack that can be used to gain unauthorized access on the web application part. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply do right click and send this request to the repeater. So drop the packet from here, So as we know about the repeater are basically used to simply modify the request parameter. But uh, instead of the repeater, we have to use this on the intruder part. So I'm going to use this on intruder. Repeater is basically used to modify. I'm just want to recall your previous things. So repeater, it will modify the sequence over here. So we have the intruder. In intruder, we can perform a brute force attack with some word list. So we have the host IP address, the port number, the positions. So first thing first, what we're gonna do over here, we're gonna try to use this dictionaries over here. So there are 5 payload position. 5 payload means 5 parameters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we over here we're gonna have to attack on the specific parameter value, which is whatever username and password. So I'm gonna clear all the tags. Clear all the tags. Yes. So let's try with finding the first parameter value. Let's try with using the first. We're gonna find the username first of all. So over here I'm gonna uh, highlight the tag of username, add tag. So this username parameter, we're gonna perform a brute force attack. We're gonna use some phrases, and the attack type will be sniper because I'm gonna use it for a single parameter attack. And on the payload tab, in the payload tab, we're gonna use our a payload which is contains some word list, some words over here, some phrases. Please kindly mute your mic. Whose mic is on, please? So you can see over here we can use one or more payload sets. Number of payload sets depend on the attack type, depends on the position with tabs. So I basically using sniper because it's a single parameter attack. So payload set 1, and we're gonna load the payload. So we're gonna use username. So in username we can see lots of words over there, which contains 100 words. Let's see. And the option will let us number of threads. So the scan has been done, and we can see over here it's showing us 200 requests. But there is a problem over here. All the requests are 200 and the length are 4715. So it's taking all the users over here. It's taking all the users. From the response code, 200 taking all the users in a proper way. So let's try one thing over here. I'm gonna make a new word list. So touch, we're gonna name this one dictionary. So in touch tick, I'm gonna make some word list over here. So I'm gonna copy all the words from this word list, and I'm gonna paste this on the same word list, and the password also. Now let's check the word count. wc-l or dig. So we have around 200 words. We have a simple dictionary. So what I'm going to do here now, because this parameter values was not attacking properly. So let's do remove, clear our tags. Now let's select the password parameter also. Now we're going to perform attacking with both the parameter. Why? Because the first parameter will cross verify with the second parameter also. So username and password will be cross verified. So I'm going to use attacker types cluster bomb, permutation and combination. Why we are using permutation and combination? Because first parameter will cross verify with the second parameter, and if the parameter values are true, it will give us a proper authentication or a proper login form. Payload, now we can see we can select the 2 payloads over here. Load payload, we're gonna use the same dictionary. Now we're gonna use in the cluster bomb, we use the same dictionary for attacking phase and defending phase. So payload 2 also using the same payload. Now the total number of requests you can see 39,661. So it's a lot number of lots of requests. 130, 199 1 into 199. It will make a proper combinations. So you can see over here the number of requests that they're gonna use it over here. This number of requests should be blocked in a per after 2 and 3 requests, because the server should block up temporary client for a specific period of time. सिंपल लॉजिक है. अगर एक एप्लीकेशन आपको 3 से ज्यादा बार आपको अगर 4 बार अटेंड करने के लिए दे रहा है अपने रिक्वेस्ट को सबमिट करने के लिए, सो ये एक मेजर वल्नरेबिलिटी है. और यहाँ पे 5000 रिक्वेस्ट यहाँ पे ट्रांसफर हो रही है, देख रहे हो आप. और सबके रिक्वेस्ट 200 देखो.
सर इसमें बहुत समय लग जाता होगा.
हाँ
सर इसमें मतलब समय लग जाता होगा, टाइम लग जाता होगा.
आप अपना माइक थोड़ा सा अपने पास लाइए फिर बोलिए.
सर इसमें तो बहुत टाइम लगता है.
इसमें बहुत टाइम लगता है. यस, इसमें बहुत ज्यादा टाइम लगता है क्योंकि आपको ये पूरा फर्स्ट पैरामीटर के साथ सेकंड पैरामीटर के साथ मैच करके देखेगा. तो अगर आप ये देखो, ये 100 वर्ड्स पहले रूट के साथ चेक करेगा, उसके बाद ये गेस्ट माइस्क्ल यूजर सबके साथ एक एक करके चेक करने के बाद ही ये आपके आगे बढ़ेगा.
सर इट्स लाइक वो जो क्रंच बनाते हैं पासवर्ड ट्रैकिंग के लिए वैसा.
वो डिक्शनरी अटैक है, ये आपका ब्रूट फोर्स अटैक है.
बट ब्रूट फोर्स तो बिट फास्ट होता है ना.
ब्रूट फोर्स और डिक्शनरी टोटली डिफरेंट अटैक है सिद्धार्थ.
यस सर पता है.
अब ये मैं ब्रूट फोर्स अटैक कर रहा हूँ, डिक्शनरी अटैक नहीं कर रहा.
सर बॉट भी ऐसे ही होता है.
ये देखो, अगर इसको आंसर कहाँ पे, इसको एक प्रॉपर 200 मिला है. ये देखो 5915922 जो कि एडमिन एंड पासवर्ड, जिसकी लेंथ ऑफ नंबर क्या रहा है 4753. मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ लेंथ का मतलब होता है कि मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ फाइल एग्जीक्यूशन. और अगर मैं यहाँ पे देखूं, वेलकम टू पासवर्ड प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया एडमिन, दिस इज द प्रॉपर ऑथेंटिकेटेड पार्ट. और अगर मैं इसको देखूं रूट को, तो आप देखना कि यहाँ पे नहीं लिखा होगा वेलकम टू पासवर्ड प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया. नहीं. So this parameter over here, the first parameter, which is your admin password, is the correct answer. And you can see if there is a 39,000 something request which is flowing on the backend server, there is a huge impact over there. A huge major cause can be performed. Let's see, show response in browser. Welcome to the password area admin, and we are login. We have a proper authentication login over here on this web server. See, this happened because of the poor code. Always, if we are doing a web application testing part, remember to check the source code of the page. Simple, it's an if statement in the PHP code. Is it in login, get username from username, get password from password, which is from MD5 hashes. You can see check they are using the check the database. Query select star from the user where user is equal to and pass. You can see over here MySQL's query, global, your die, if statement, get user details, login successful, login failed. They have given one by one all the things. But there is no hashes over here, one by one. Our major perspective is to simply identify the vulnerability one by one, how an attacker can gain unauthorized access to the server. That's why DBW has multiple vulnerabilities. But this vulnerability should be checked. If you check for the broken authentication vulnerability on the HackerOne report, you will find lots of vulnerabilities over there. There are lots of vulnerabilities that can be help us for identifying. Many further things are there. Same if you look for the other reports. For example, there is a vulnerability called your command injection also. Command injection attack is just like your first A1, which is your injection. Injection attack occurs when the user is able to input untrusted data, tricking the application system to execute initiate commands. Initiate command means arbitrary commands, malicious commands that can be used to harm the server or execution unwanted pop-ups. One injection can be your SQL query. See, the types of injection we are talking about. The injection could be your SQL queries, your PHP queries, your LDAP queries, your OS queries. There are lots of types of injections that can be used over here for information gathering part. So they have given one thing, what to inject, queries, OS commands, codes, and URL manipulations. Where to inject, wherever a user input is required or use can be modified data. It can be a text box, username and password field, uh, your feedback field, your comment field, URL, etc. So why to inject? To check if the application is vulnerable or not. And OS command injection is a vulnerability where an attacker can execute some machine commands, operating system commands. If you see over here, OS command injection, you can see OS command injection is an attack in which the goal is to execute of arbitrary commands on the host operating system by vulnerable applications. The command injection attacks are possible when the application passes unsafe user supplied data from cookies, headers, and etc. It could be any form. And in this scenario, you can see they have given ping a device IP address. See this one. This is a normal parameter, and we can see a proper submit button. So let's try ping an IP address. So what a ping command do? If we talk about a ping command, -c number packet 3 and the localhost IP address. So normal ping command just transfers some echo packet, 64 bytes of echo packet, which works on the port number 7 to check whether the host is live or not, or to check analyze the TTL value, time to live. So in this scenario, suppose if in the OS command we use semicolon to merge one more query. Let's do who am I? Let's do semicolon again. ifconfig. So now you can see both of the queries, the 3 of the queries are executed in a single run. So what an attacker try to manipulate the data or to execute some initiate commands. So let's try 127.0.0.1. Let's use our Bob suite. So yeah, the IP command is over here. So let's do send to repeater, drop the packet, and let's see what will happen. So over here I can see IP dot 127.0.0.1 and submit button, and these are the headers. An OS command injection attack can be in anywhere, in user agent parameter, in accept parameter, in the content type parameter. It could be anywhere. So you have to execute, you have to check one by one. So when I send the data IP.127.0.0.1, I can see they are basically pinging the machine. So in OS command injection attack, we're gonna see the RCE also, remote code execution part. So let's suppose if I simply add a semicolon and I do ifconfig, then what will happen? I can run some command execution over here also. See, when I do ifconfig, I can see they have running the IP address also. Let's do what other applications are running in the server. And we can see we can run command execution over here. OS command execution attack can be a simple attack. You can see over here, if you see the source code, the major objective in this vulnerability is to understand how the source code runs. This is a normal PHP code, and they are simply executing CMD. See this one, a request from the IP address, determine the OS execution and ping command. See, they are using CMD, which is your shell execution. Shell execution means you can execute any commands line over there. So it's running an IP address, ping, and the target, which you're gonna assign an IP over here. And else is it if it's a Linux machine, then ping 4 packets, execution shells, and the IP address. So in this scenario, there are many ways an attacker can execute. If an attacker can execute some command line injection on the web application, but it can cause major attack. An attacker can enumerate lots of vulnerabilities on the server side, which can be lead us for information gathering part. Sometimes instead of semicolon, you can use single pipe. See, single pipe is also work. Sometimes a semicolon might be blocked on the server side. So you should know what are the separators. Separators. The word separator, I will say. Separators like your double end, your semicolon, your single pipe, your double pipe. This could be other things also. There are lots of separators that we can use over here. But the major perspective, we have to find all the things one by one, which can be lead us for information gathering part for the further stages. You can use double pipe also over here. The major thing I'm using double pipe because as I mentioned you, application might block your applications. Or you can use double end. Or I can say single end. You have to try over there. You have to try until you get an answer. See, if you're not entering the IP address, or you can simply use a separator to execute the commands. And through the OS command injection, an attacker can try to manipulate or get a reverse shell also. So if I check which, do we have netcat on the server? I guess we don't have netcat on the server. Do we have Perl command on the server? Yes, we have user Perl on the server side. An attacker use Perl command to get a reverse shell on the server side. For example, if you search for the vulnerability over here, like your pen test monkey reverse shell. See this one, bash, Perl, Pythons. These are the reverse shells that we can use it over here to gain unauthorized access. You can use these. You can use this reverse shell Perl. You can use this Perl. This is a normal your reverse shell, and we can use this reverse shell to gain unauthorized access. Or what you have to do, you just have to use this shell on the server side, and this would be our attacker IP address, and the port number could be anything. So you can see socket, SF, initiate socket stream, get TCP connection. If the socket connection is this, you can get a proper reverse shell, and when this shell will execute, you will get a bin sh. It's shell execution. So we're gonna try this one over here. That can we use it for the further stages to get a reverse shell. An attacker can place this shell over here to get a proper server takeover. Server takeover vulnerability is a major vulnerability, and it can be caused a proper company's reputation. Remember one thing, semicolon might be blocked, so you have to use different separators. You have to try the different separators one by one to try to gain unauthorized access, or simply try the vulnerabilities. There are major types of vulnerability that can be used over there one by one. See this one. If you search for OS command injection separators, this is a port swagger website. They can use double AND function. See, useful command that can be used over here for getting some name correct user, who am I, operating system version, uname -a, i5 config, process running and applications. Yeah, look, way of injecting and double and single pipe, double pipe. You can use the following command separator, works only Unix based operating system, Unix based. So it could be semicolon, new line. You can use new line or 0x0a buffer, or you can use -n. You can use on Unix system. You can also use backtick or dollar characters to perform inline execution, or injected command line in the original commands, like your injected command or dollar. See, it's all about the separators that we can use over here. This website is for port swagger. Port swagger website. So यहाँ पे आप खुद भी अगर आप देखो, so यहाँ पे you will find a lots of things. The most of the team we use cheat sheets. Separators. Many further things can be done over there, one by one. So if you see over here, through the vulnerability, attacker can try many further things. there are many applications and servers are vulnerable to the OS command injections, and a lot of things can be happened. For example, I hope this one is clear to you guys. For a normal demonstration, it was how a injection works, because OS command injection is a type of injection which can be parameterized in any of the parameter value. You have to simply check one by one the queries. For example, there is a vulnerability called cross-site forgery attack. Change your admin password with a new password and confirm password. But what exactly this vulnerability is? Let's have a look on the web application 101, how to make ethically money hacking ethically. So you can see over here this one. So we have cross-site forgery attack, CSRF. So cross-site forgery attack is an attack where is basically an attacker use this vulnerability to gain perform an unauthorized action in the user behalf. Or you can say this vulnerability is occur when a malicious website or an email, instant message, application, etc. cause a user web browser where the victim is running to perform some actions of another website. Therefore, it's already unauthenticated or logged in, or this occurs without the user knowing the action has occurred. So this impact is basically your CSRF attack depends on the website which is receiving the action. Csr attack is an attack where an attacker simply runs some initiate commands in the user behalf. So simply malcrafted URL can be sent to the victim side, and when a victim will execute that URL in his browser, same session will be executed from his side. You can see over here they have given an example that how the CSRF attack works. Bob logs into his bank account, performs some banking, but does not log out. He's still authenticated over there. Bob checks his email and click a link to an unfamiliar website. Unfamiliar website means the malicious website. The unfamiliar website make a request of Bob's banking account to transfer money, passing in the cookie information stored from the Bob's banking session. So remember one thing, when you're authenticated to an application, the cookie parameter stores the browser locations and the application session path, where it's currently running. Bob's banking website received a request from an unfamiliar website without using the CSRF token. Yes, the CSRF token is an important part. Whenever you're authenticated to an application, server will provide you a CSRF token. It means a valid session token for an individual user which is using that application. A token is a validation that the specific token is given to a specific user which is a valid person. CSRF attack, cross-site forgery attack is an attack you can simply check. Simple. What we're going to do here, we're going to try to check if an attacker can simply create an app or not. So see this one. We're going to change the password of our admin portal. So new password and confirm password. See, I'm logged into this application. We are using this application with the username, admin, and password. Okay, but now we are using this application for changing my current password. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to name this one anything 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5. So let's capture this packet and let's try to read what will happen. So we can see that the password of new password and the password confirmation is over there. And one more thing, see, the CSRF token is not over here. CSRF token are the most important part where and whenever we are performing any unwanted or any of the changes in the application, servers should give a CSRF valid token to perform that task. If the server is not performing any of the CSR token, that server could be vulnerable to CSR of attack. An attacker can do a lots of further things can be done by them. See this one, how we gonna simply malcraft this one? I'm gonna do right click, because there was no CSR token. The CSR token would be like this. If we talk about the cross site request for G attack, CSRF token and some random words. This random word is your session token, which is a validation for a specific user. So we're going to try this one to simply perform some malcrafted or some unauthorized works. Let's try one by one what will happen. So this scenario will let us simply check one by one over there. So let's try it over here, this one. So let's try seeing this. So over here, we're gonna send this request to our victim side, but over here we're gonna do engagement tool. We're gonna do regenerate CSR POC. So we're gonna try this one. So I'm gonna drop the packet because I don't need the packet right now anymore. So let's try this one. Yes. So over here we can see we can generate POC, CSR POC generator, which can be used for malcrafting. You can see the parameter values with that we have changed. Hexadecimal values. So this is a normal values over here, and we can see the CSR of HTML part. The CSR HTML part, which is an HTML body, contains our Java code. So you can see generated by website professionals. We can do in options. We can do one thing, URL encoded. You can write URL encoded, or we can do include as submitted, include as auto submitted. When the victim will open this one, this will be automatically submitted by the victim side. So we can do generate, and over here you can see a JavaScript, which is on document.forum, which is a submit button over here created. The submit button has been created over here, so we can try one by one. So we're gonna try to manipulate, and we're gonna try to execute. Trigger replication bot. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to copy the HTML part. See what an attacker do. See, he simply copy the HTML part and simply he put this specific file on a text file, a new window. So you can see there's an HTML body which we have generated in the POC. So this POC will generate a normal value which will be changed. So we're gonna save this one, and I'm gonna name this one Csrf test.html. So we have written this one HTML. So what will happen if we send this thing to the victim side, and if the victim tried to execute this query, so if he is on the same application, look, the victim should be on the same application, because the same application will create the same session token. So if the victim is on the same session token, or is on the different browser or different network, his password will be changed properly. See, the password has been changed. And if I log out from this application, because they are using the same browser, the request has been generated by the browser which contains a cookie parameter. So I'm going to use admin password. So you can see the admin password was not working. The password is now is admin 12345 as per the data, because the browser has the victim side has executed the query from here. So the parameter values can be changed one by one, which can be used for the further stages. और सबसे ज़्यादा important है कि इस attack सबसे ज़्यादा vulnerability आपको इस attack से मिलेगी. Many further things can be happen over there. One by one. So Csr of attack is the major attack where simply if the application is not creating any Csr token, an attacker can change it for account takeover, or it can perform a lot of other things. But most of the attackers perform Csrf to account takeover vulnerabilities. If you see over here, Csrf medium report. You will get lots of vulnerabilities over here according to the Csrf. The medium is one of the best ones. The techniques are the important. But we are hackers, blah blah blah. This one looks great. So what's how Csr works? Csr will only work if the potential victim is authenticated or using a Csr attacker. You can see a perpetrator, which is an attacker, will be simply execute and shit command. Perpetrator forged a request from a fund transfer of a website, embedded the request into a hyperlink, and sent to the visitor who is below site. The visitor check on the link and initially sending the request to the website, and it will get a proper request. The website validate the user request and transfer the funds from the visitors. So it will malcraft the server request to the victim, which is currently authenticated to that specific website. So there are many further things. Example of Csr attack: get request. Sometimes the URL data which will transform from this. You can see transfer amount from the user, or you can see the source code, which is your image source, which is also used for specifying the data query. Post request, which will be on forum. Preventing CSRF vulnerability. This is the important part. Preventing the CSRF vulnerability, website should perform a CSRF token in every application to be properly authenticated. And many further things. Same site cookies, summary. You can see lots of things here. You can go to the Medium blogs and you can read about lots of other things one by one, which can be used for the further stages. So we have one more vulnerability that is called file inclusion vulnerability. File inclusion vulnerability is known as your LFI and RFI. So if I talk about file inclusion vulnerabilities and vulnerability where an attacker can simply extract some data from the server side with the file's positions. For example, you can see this question mark with the page is uploading a file which is a include.php from the server side. If I simply give you a definition of file inclusion vulnerability, you can see a file inclusion vulnerability is a type of web vulnerability that mostly commonly found to affect web applications that rely on the scripting running time. Successful exploitation of this file exploit vulnerability will result in remote code execution on the web server that runs effective web application parts. So file inclusion vulnerability are the major vulnerability which can be used to extract some databases information from the server side, from the backend side, sorry, from the backend side. You can see over here, every file inclusions are the part of every advanced server-side scripting language on the web. Server-side scripting language means they are simply fetching the data. They are needed to be kept in web application code tidy and maintainable. They also allow web application to read files from the file system, provide download functionality, parse configuration files, and other similar tasks. If not implemented properly, attackers can exploit them and craft an LFI attack, which may lead to information disclosure, cross-site scripting, and remote code execution, which is your RFI vulnerabilities. What exactly the file? How do file inclusion vulnerability works? For example, you can see over here something coming from the server side. Page is equal to include.php. Include.php is a file from the server which can be read. For example, see this one, file 1. It's showing me that your IP address is this. File 2, I need a password 8 characters long, so I fix Snow White and the 7 drafts. Nick Hallam. So these are the files which is we are fetching from the server side. See. Welcome back, admin. Your IP address is 110. Your user agent is Mozilla Linux. You came from this, and I'm hosted on this. So this specific file, which is fetching from the server side, an attacker can simply see how an example looks like. Module, something is fetching from the server side. The risk of file inclusion vulnerability, an attacker can simply extract any of the server files. You can see over here, the risk of introducing the local file inclusion vulnerability is a developer fails to implement sufficient filtering. Filtering means it should not be execute any commands from the client side. An attacker can exploit the file inclusion vulnerability by replacing contact.php with the path of the sensitive file, such as password file, or where passwords are stored in the Unix system. For example, see this one. We have includes.php file. So let's see if we can access the etc password or not. And over here, I can see we can execute etc passwords. etc password reveals some sensitive information from the server side. Some sensitive information like it could be used for password queries. It could be used for any of the versions. It could be anything. Local file inclusion vulnerability is simple. If I talk about, it's gathering the sensitive information from the server scripting languages, which is wrong. Getting some sensitive information from the server, which is your etc password, is also one of the data, and etc password contains all the username and password. If an attacker can find any LFI vulnerability on the parameter page, he can use the LFI vulnerability to gain unauthorized access also, which is RFI, remote file inclusion. Remote file inclusion is a vulnerability where an attacker simply initiate commands just like a website URL on that specific URL, or simply gaining unauthorized access with a remote execution, command execution. See this one. I will write the https google.com. If we find a parameter value which is affected to file inclusion vulnerability, then we can run some initiate commands like this one also. See, on that specific URL, I can run google.com and you can see Google is over here. But the major part thing, we can run Google over here. See, I can see images. An attacker can try to manipulate the data one by one, which can be used for the further stages. And many attacks, many possibilities can be performed over there. That's why most of the attackers, they try to manipulate or simply gain unauthorized access to perform some initiate commands one by one. File inclusion vulnerabilities are the major vulnerabilities that can be used for gaining access. You can see also it's known as dietary traversal attack. Dietary traversal attack is also one of the attack where we can simply jump the dietaries one by one to get the sensitive data. The exploitations of the local file inclusion vulnerabilities, an attacker can also perform a dietary traversal path attack. For example, an attacker can exploit the above mentioned issue to access the files of the server, such as the web server logs files, which is error.logs or access.logs, or the other files that may contain sensitive metadata that web application get web server. Dot// is a vulnerability which can be used for exploit or jump a full path traversal.